Hello fellow gaijins, welcome back to the channel. Do you want to learn how to watch anime without subtitles? You want to read news in Japanese, or you just want to hit on girls in Japan? Whatever your reasons are for wanting to learn Japanese, this video series will help you achieve your goals and have fun while doing it. Now, in most textbooks and most other resources for actually learning Japanese, they always have almost the same order. And when you go out into the real world, you want to have conversational Japanese, not just textbook Japanese. This series is not focusing on textbook Japanese, but on the practical side of things so that you can apply all of the learned things in real life situations and really get to the point where you can have a conversation with any Japanese person, or at least for the beginning have a few basic interactions. One thing I want to preface is that this series will start at the very beginning. If you're not an absolute beginner, this series might not help you at first, but after we get out the first 5 or 6 episodes, we will get into harder stuff that might help you too. So maybe consider subscribing just so you can be notified when I upload the harder episodes that will be uploaded next week or something, because I will upload the series every second day, maybe every day if I have the time. So it will also be beneficial for more advanced learners, still maybe in the beginner stage, but almost intermediate learners that already know a lot of vocabulary but still don't know a lot about the grammar. So if you are in that bracket, keep sure that you will come back to the videos because they will get a lot better in the future. For now, it's for you beginners that don't know anything about Japanese, and I will start at the very beginning with the basics. The videos will be structured in 4 different parts. They will start with a kana part where I talk about Hiragana, Katakana, the alphabets in general, and teach you some new kana for the day. Then I will teach you about some new vocabulary. Usually there are like 10 words or maybe 20 words. In the description you will find a link to my Quizlet page where I will make different sets for the different episodes for the vocabulary, the kanji and the kana. If you want to study them on your own, you can use Quizlet wherever you are if you have internet, and it's free. So definitely make use of this opportunity to study what I teach you. I will probably also make videos in between the normal videos that will focus on either pronunciation or reading or other stuff like that. That is very useful for your overall studies. Now in this video, I will go over the most basic concepts like how the alphabets are used and what they are and why they exist, and also maybe teach you about some basic pronunciation and how Japanese is pronounced in usual conversations. Enough rambling from my side, let's get straight into the lesson. Now at the core of the Japanese are the 3 alphabets. It's Hiragana, Katakana, and Kanji. First, let's talk about Hiragana. Hiragana is used to write normal Japanese words that are not from any other country, but really standard Japanese. Maybe they've come from China like a long time ago, but just in general, it's the Japanese words that were here for a long time. Katakana is used for foreign words and foreign names usually. Kanji are the Chinese characters that were introduced to Japan in the 5th century, I believe, through Korea, and they are used for almost every word that can be written in kanji. There are some words that are written only in hiragana, but usually almost every Japanese word has a kanji writing if it is not a foreign word, and even though it is not used, it exists. Usually every Japanese person knows around 2000 kanji, and they are more or less required in order for you to read anything in Japan, because newspapers and stuff like that almost use almost all of the kanji. They're very important if you want to live there. Now they're not that important at the beginning because you won't read too much kanji at the beginning if you read children's books or just children's news, but learning them early on can be very helpful because some basic kanji will come up a lot whatever you do in Japan. In the coming maybe 20 episodes, I will introduce hiragana and katakana gradually, just so you don't get overwhelmed by the amount of them. There are around 43 or 46 hiragana and katakana. Per episode, I will probably introduce 5 hiragana or katakana, depending what we are working on at the moment. And then I will use them in the grammar and in the vocabulary, just so you see the usage. And you will have Quizlets to really reinforce your studies for the katakana and hiragana in the description below. Now this was just an introduction. You don't have to understand everything I just said perfectly, but maybe pick up a few things. Maybe remember what katakana are used for, what hiragana are used for. If you don't remember, just look at it again. It's kind of important to know. And just remember, don't overwork yourself. Take one episode at a time. Learn everything there is to learn in the episode and then go to the next one. Now let's start with basic pronunciation. there are almost no single sounds that are one letter. The only sounds that have only one letter are a, e, I, o, u, the normal vocals, and then there is the n, which is just n. For the vocals a, e, I, o, u, it is very important to get the pronunciation right because everything that is said in this language is built upon those 5 vocals. If you want to use any consonant in Japanese, you have to put it in front of a vocal. If you want to use K, you have to say ka or ke, ki, ko, ku, one of these. There is no standalone K in Japanese. This is true for any consonant besides the N. This sounds hard, but it actually makes pronouncing the language really easy. The reason for that is that if you just learn a, e, I, o, u, and how to say them in this fashion, just adding a consonant in the beginning of the a, e, I, o, u is actually really easy. You just put it there and then say the a with the K or the G or the D, whatever it is. For example, if you want to form a syllable with the T, it's just ta or te. The thing I want you to practice is to get rid of the, for example, the E sound. If you see an E, you just have to say E. It's not E. Or the A sound is an A. Just practice those very flat and like dry sounds. Now that we have the basics out of the way, let's start with the first episode. Now, first of all, I want to tell you why I want to start with Katakana and not with Hiragana like everybody else does. Because for me, it's kind of important. I noticed that after I learned Hiragana, I didn't really want to learn Katakana anymore. Learning Katakana is not really an urgent matter because you don't really need it as much. If you read something, it's usually in Hiragana or Kanji, so learning Katakana is just a secondary matter that you will probably just use later on. But people just get so lazy that they usually just don't learn it at all, or they learn it very poorly. I notice myself that when I read, I sometimes even forget a Katakana, or I'm like, what was that again? Or, you know, if I want to write it, I just can't, you know. There are some Katakanas that I really can't write, or it just slips my mind a lot of the time. And that is because I learned Hiragana first and I didn't really reinforce my Katakana because it's kind of, you know, it takes time and it just doesn't make sense for me if I can read Hiragana, which is 90% of the written Japanese language anyway. So we will introduce Katakana first and then Hiragana. Please bear with me, it will help you a lot in the future. Now let's start with the first 5 Katakana that you will learn in this series. The first 5 Katakana that we will learn are the vocals. They're kind of basic, it's just a few strokes, it's not too hard to remember them if you write them down a few times. Just try to do this before we move on to the vocabulary section. You don't have to learn them by heart now, but until the next video at least, try to learn them as best as you can. The first word I want to teach you is inu. Inu means dog. Inu. Inu. The second word is watashi. Watashi means me or I. Watashi. Watashi. The third word is taberu. This is the first verb you will actually learn in this series, and it's very important that you understand how to use verbs early on because they are used in almost every sentence. Taberu. Taberu. The last word on the list is kawaii. Kawaii means cute. Usually people know this from anime. This is the first adjective you will learn in the series, and we will also go over the different adjective types that there are and their uses. Kawaii. Kawaii. Japanese grammar can be pretty hard to learn, especially if you are an English-speaking native, because everything is reversed. First of all, let's just get one thing out of the way. Verbs are always at the end of the sentence. If you want to use the verb as a noun, you can do that, and then it doesn't have to be at the end of the sentence, but we will not cover this in this video. In the Japanese language, there are particles. Now, particles are not the same as in our languages, but they have the same name, but they are usually just used to label different words for their function. So, for example, the subject has a particle that comes directly after it, and an object has a particle that comes directly after it. So every word needs a particle that comes after or before it to really tell you what this word is used for. Because Japanese doesn't really have another way of telling you this. It is a very contextual language, and the particles usually help to distinguish between directions of like giving or maybe receiving and stuff like that. It is very important to have a good basis on particles because they play a huge role in how the language is understood and how a sentence is formed. So really pay attention to where you place the particles in a sentence and how they are used. I would really recommend you to take a sheet or something that you can write on, or maybe make a small booklet where you can write those things down. The three particles I want to tell you about in this video are o, wa, and no. Let's look at the wo particle. Now this is in Hiragana because I want you to learn the particles in Hiragana because you will never see them in Katakana. Never, ever. So I'll just show you in Hiragana. You can already, take them from your list, but there are not too many of them, so it's actually quite easy to learn those single particles in Hiragana. And if you learn them now in Hiragana, you will have a much fonder memory of them if you see them in a sentence, so you won't get confused about what is a particle and what is not a particle. In the example sentences, I will use those particles with Hiragana, but if they come in a word, I will use Katakana if you've learned them. If you haven't, I will use Romaji. O, that you can see here as a Hiragana, is usually pronounced as wo, but as a particle, it is pronounced as o. There's no way around it, you just have to remember this. If you learn the Hiragana later, you will see that it's not that hard to distinguish between a particle sound and a normal sound, but yeah, just keep it in mind. O is the object particle. O is always used in front of a verb and after an object. Let's make an example sentence. Soba o taberu. Soba o taberu. The o is after the object. So what do you eat? You eat the soba. Soba is the object of the sentence, and taberu is the verb. O just connects those two things and tells you what are you exactly doing with this object. The o particle is very often used when you use something. Strange sentence, but yeah. If you want to do an action with an object, if the verb is an action, then it is an o in between. There are other particles that you can use in between verbs and objects or verbs and subjects, but those come in a later episode. The next particle is wa. Wa is actually not wa because the written hiragana is ha. Why exactly do we pronounce this ha as wa in Japanese when it is a particle? I actually don't really know, but it's just done like that. Like if the ha is a particle, it is pronounced as wa. But don't learn this as wa because it is ha if you use it as a hiragana in a word, but as a particle it is pronounced as wa. The wa particle is used for subjects. The subject is always placed in front of the wa particle. That's all. Now let's make an example sentence using the wa and the o particle. Inu wa soba o taberu. Inu wa soba o taberu. This means the dog eats soba. The dog eats soba, as in this example, is just a regular action. It's not something you do once or at this moment. That's not it. It's just something he does in general. You learned the word watashi, which means I. You can also use these words to form a sentence that is very similar to the one we've had before. Watashi wa soba o taberu. I eat soba. The last particle I want to talk about is no. This is probably the easiest particle in this bunch because it doesn't really have many exceptions. It is very straightforward. In Japanese, if you want to connect two nouns and make them have a relation to each other, you use the no particle in between. For example, if I want to say my dog, I just say watashi no inu. Two nouns and the no in between makes a correlation between them. Now it's my dog. Usually you can interpret it as the second word belongs to the first word, but it's not always like this. It's usually just a connection between those two words. We will use this particle a lot in the future, so you will not get bored of it and you will see a lot of uses for it, so don't stress about every little detail about it. Just remember that you put two nouns together with this particle. So this is everything I wanted to teach you in terms of new stuff. It may seem as a lot, but if you really get into it and use those sets I put in the description, it will help you a lot to get a foundation that will also be built upon in the next few episodes. Now, to end the episode, I want to use everything we learned today and put it into one single example sentence. The example sentence is Watashi no kawaii inu wa soba o taberu. Once more. Watashi no kawaii inu wa soba o taberu. Now once more, but in a faster pace. 私の可愛い犬はそばを食べる. This would be conversational pacing, conversational speed. Listen to it a few times, just try to process what I'm saying, get every word into your ear and really understand what I say. In the next episode, I will say this exact sentence again. Now, I hope you will have at least maybe 1 hour in between episodes where you study this stuff and, go through the sets, so that when you get to the next episode, you will have maybe forgotten about what the sentence sounds like. And so when I say it, you will have to process it again and really take out the stuff out of your brain and piece it together so that you really, practice it again and again. Tell me in the description if you understand the sentence and what it means. I'm really excited to see your progress for the next episodes. Any feedback is appreciated, and I'm really grateful that you've watched until here. If you like the video, throw those shurikens all over the like button. It would really help out the channel. The next episode will be posted tomorrow or maybe 2 days from now, depending on how much time it will take to make it. But I will probably start after uploading this video, so yeah, it's not going to take too much time. Again, thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your studies, and I'll see you in the next one. Mata ne.